All right. Block 8, corner tails. We're on a scant 1/4 inch. Ooh, all right. Let's stay tuned there while Alexa's doing something in the background. We're gonna have to figure out a scant 1/4 inch. I might work out. So I haven't done a scant 1/4 inch. So we're gonna do some offline learning. We are then also probably gonna work out how to film sewing, because that's gonna be a problem. Okay, so what do we have to do? Scant seam to sew, blah, 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 blah. So and so and so and so and so. Well, while we're here, we can iron. So the first 2 things we're gonna iron is, let's double check. We're gonna go the 9 inch, use a scant seam, sew the 9 inch strip of each fabric together to make the strip set shown. Okay, so that's step 1. Take the long 13 inch and following the chain strip method, we're going to sew some stuff to it. Okay. Okay. Oh yeah, I get it. All right. I get the sewing part of it. That is easy to explain in a video. That's going to be fine. I am going to go and work out which foot we use or how we get a precise scant seam. 1/4 inch, a scant for 1/4 inch. Say that 10 times. Oh, found a pin. All right, I'll do that and I'll be back. May or may not be back with coffee or wine or gin, or I may or may not, you know, we might reshoot this later, and I might give up on this today and do something else. Let's see how complicated it is. Bye. You're gonna be able to hear the crow in the background. Okay. So a scant is pretty close. Right over there. So a scant is as like pretty close to. There's the dimensions down here. Where's my finger? 3/16 of an inch. So it's obviously less than a 1/4 inch. So how you get it? Now, I don't know if your machine's going to be the same as mine. So I've worked it out. This is as close as I can get it where I'm comfortable not hitting my, if I zoom in there. I could probably go a bit over, and maybe I will. I probably won't because I feel like that's getting really close. If I pull that down, that's getting as close as I'm comfortable with to the edge of the foot. Look how dusty my foot is. Okay, so I've moved my needle position over a bit. So this is what I'm currently running on. I've also bumped it up to 2 because it's just sewing a bit better at 2. So 8.7. Now my 1/4 inch seam is 8.3. So 1, 2, 8.7. Now what that gives me is, so that's my standard. And you can see I'm like right on it, also a bit over sometimes. And then if you come down to here, so that's the 8.7 there, and the stitching line is just outside the ruler. Now I think I need to probably go to 8.8 to get it a little bit finer, but I don't know. Well, yeah, let's try it. Hang on. All right. So 8.8 didn't make the world of difference, but I guess it's still a scant. Like it's as scant as I'm going. So 8.8 and a 2. That is how I'm going to do block 8 when we're doing a scant. I'm also going to write on this. Oh, where are you? There. I'll write on this. All right. I can probably splice this together. I'll be back later. All right, we're back. We know what a scant is. We've ironed, we've read, we've reminded ourselves about her method of chain piecing. we've turned the coffee machine on, and I feel like this is going to be a, you know, my fingers, a brain breaker. I don't think I'm going to enjoy this one. Ursula is on standby, and so is Booze. We will get you one of these So Easy Quilt and Sew rulers, because this is the only one that I have. It's a 1-inch ruler that has the 3/8/16 on there. The True Cut does, but it's just a little bit harder to read. And this one's, sorry, no, it doesn't have it. The True Cut has just the quarters, like the inches, but these have got the other ones. Rulers. So we'll add this to your collection at some point, Mum. Okay. Now, because this is a scant seamed quilt block, so it's the next one, we're going to make sure we sew this all at one time, and that we keep checking to see if the sewing machine has reset the seam size or the needle position. Mine asks me if I'm doing something the same or different, and I ignore that, and then things change. I think I need to read the manual of my sewing machine. Okay. I'm just pinning this because I feel like due diligence on this block is going to be necessary. We're going to learn a new technique. Well, two. One's scant and two's chain. All right, I'm going to sew this, and then we're going to cut it up. And then we're going to attach it to other things. No, I'll wait. I'll show that to you after I've done this. All right, so before I set this seam, I'm gonna attempt, actually I have a smaller version of that. We have my nails. Okay. So we're gonna, okay, zoom in. And then, okay, so it turns out when you're zooming in and filming, you move the object, not the camera. All right. So, oh, that'll go there. Okay. So, if you look closely, you can see there's the real 1/4 inch, so like our normal seams, and then I'm on the inside of it. And can you see? Okay, it's a pretty good zoom in. Let me go here. Okay, I didn't change to the 9. I'm still doing 8.8, and I have to stand up so you can see this in the camera. Yeah. Okay, so 1/4 inch and 1/4 inch line up. I'll try and get the fabric out of the way. Yep, so we're doing, all right, and then you can see the scant seam is actually inside. So pretty much, give or take, it's now accurate because I was sewing on scrap before. So just on the outside of a 3/16 seam. And that's the best I'm doing, that's all I've got. But you can see how that's going to end up accumulating into a big problem if you don't sew it, and eventually your block will be too small, and there's lots of seams on this block. So wait, I'll zoom back out. What do we normally sit at? I think we normally sit there. So there's lots going on in this block, which means you'll end up in a whole world of hurt. I love this, by the way. If you don't pay attention. So this is my other, for anyone who doesn't have these, this brand, I know you can buy online, but it's So Easy. It's designed in Australia, and they're, you know, most common like Spotlight and stuff like that, but they're really nice rulers, and you can see them, and they do the inch in red and the 1/2 inch in black dotted. They are some of my favorite rulers. I do have some different other types. This is growing to be a good ruler, a favorite ruler. This has got a guide on it. All right, I'm going to go set my seam. And then we are going to subcut this into strips. So we're going to subcut into strips as shown. Then I'm going to make the strip share. We're going to cut the strip at 1.5 inch intervals. Okay, that won't be too difficult. Okay, let's get this out of the way. So we're going to repeat that again. So we've sewn it as shown, then cut the strips at 1.5 inch intervals to make 6 1.5 by 2.5 inch smaller units. So I can even use this guy instead of my big ruler. So we're going to go 1.5 by 2.5, so that's right. So that's 1, 2, that's 3, and then if I go over here, that's going to be 6, so we're going to be fine. All right, 1.5. Now, we did this before where things aren't perfect. The thing that's going to be most obvious is your sewing line. So I'm squaring relatively close to the top, yep, and I'm going to square to my can't speak English, square to my sewing line. 1.5. I'm going to go back and double check. It says 1.5, 1.5, yep. All right, I'd say there's no going back, but there's actually plenty of this fabric. All right, 1. Two. That's going to be a problem for later, but you know, we live, we learn. We need a new board. It's roughly right. 1.5. I've got 4. And then lucky number 6. Okay. I don't know if you can tell, but I have to stand up to cut every time without fail. Okay, strip piecing method. Chain piecing method, whatever. So in your book, you're going to go all the way back to strip piecing. Then you're going to look here. So what it's telling you to do is take your long piece of fabric and then go right sides together and pin and then cut and then do it again. And it tells you to leave a little gap because obviously you're going to cut through that gap later. And so what you're essentially doing, if I were to hide that, is then make this design. So where you have this one. This, you can cut them individually and do them individually. This is just sort of like a more efficient method and you're sewing this all at once. So if I were to put this one together, it's easier if I... Now, for whatever reason, mine's bigger. And I've cut these, so it could be that I cut that one just a bit too big. But as always, we're okay with that. Now, she folds her seams open. I don't. You can do whatever you like. Are we going any particular way? Yep. All right, I'm going to change how I pin that because I don't like that. I'm going to pin on that seam every time. All right, So in this, I'm just, yeah. Now the alternative is that I'm just going to pin it this way. I'm going to pin them all first to make sure we have enough. Now I say all, it says make 4 units look like this using, so I'm only pinning 4 of these. Right. Maybe we need more of this later, so I'm going to be conservative with my pinning and stripping. Because who knows? Who knows what's coming up? I do not know what's coming up. I don't think we need more. But let's do it as they say. 1, 2, 3, and 4. I am going to go back and add some pins in to straighten this up. So I don't think you'd normally have to do that, but this fabric is so thin that it moves around a lot, and I think I'll just, given that we've got operating on such a thin seam allowance, where am I going here? Is that enough space? Yeah, that's enough space. Pin, 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 pin. By the time you get to this stage, you'll know why I told you to get new pins. Those birch pins are not going to work very well on this delicate fabric. I don't know why, I've still got pins on the sewing machine. Okay, so that is, according to that, the strip piecing method. Now, as I open that up, the orientation of the white, the strip versus the white and coloured fabric look like the book. You can see that we don't have any white showing. All right, so we're going to go a scant again, which means when we get back to the sewing machine, we're going to make sure that it's on whatever setting that you determined on your machine. Now for me, mine was 8.8 on the needle. All right, so before I go and iron this, you can see how this works. So for the last one, I just do a stitch over and then I'll cut that off. Now I'm just going to flick back to see whether it tells you to iron it up and then cut it. Open the fabrics out, press the seams, use a rotary cutter and a ruler guide to roughly cut the chain piece strips into smaller. Use the rotary cutter and the guide to cut them down to the correct size. I will probably just cut them down to the correct size as we go, so I will open them up. And then, so this is what we've got. And then if I bring this into view there, open this up, you have pattern fabric, white fabric, strip. Pattern fabric, white fabric, strip. If I had turned it the other way and sewed it easier for myself, I would have had white fabric, pattern fabric, strip, which would have been bad. All right, I'm going to iron and then I'll be back to cut them down. Before I iron, I'm going to tell you. So instinct would be to iron them that way. Set your seam and then you're going to pull each one of them up because that's the darker fabric. So this is what you get, and then we're going to cut in between. So we needed, so chain strip method, and then cut them apart and down to make 4 2x2s, 2.5 by 2.5, sorry. So yeah, that's in. All right, I'm happy there already, so I'm going to flip it just because that's the way mine have landed. Now I already know that's 2.5. All right. going to get a little trim off. Then we've got our first one. So then I'm going to turn him over. Give him a line. Now move that up and do that. It's probably a little bit better. Yep, okay. So I'm lining up my stitching line and the top. Top's a little bit wonky, but my stitching line is good. We're going 2.5. So I'm going to tidy this up on 2.5 here. Flip him back over. Am I still in your field of view? Yep. Come back here. Line up again on my stitching line and my corner. And cut him at 2.5. Flip him back around. Someone's probably going to come at me in the comments saying, you can't flip them like that. I don't know any other way. There's another way, show me. Make a video. Alright, so this is already the right-ish size. Something's not quite right there. Now it's the right size. Trim, trim. Line him up. Line him up. Happy days. Cut him down. Gonna be lazy. Do this side first. Line him up. I'll tidy that bit up. We've got a 2.5 here. Happy. Flip him. Creeping further and further out. I'll just get the new thing on, then I'll be able to operate in the middle. Happy, happy. Clean him up. Alright. Sure that's going to be useful somewhere? Probably not. Get rid of those. Bring back my felt up. Alright. So, in the diagram, that's how they are. 1, 2, 3, and 4. The last bit of the instruction says take these two and then iron them, fold them. Sew them. So white that way, so go that way. And just give them a pin. Pin. Brian's compressor stopped. That's nice. And a pin. Alright. Let me sew that and come back. Okay. Now let's see what the next bit says. Make sure that when you did that, you were on your scant seam. This is definitely a don't walk away, quilt it all at once. Okay, white ones are back. So we're going to put a white one in the middle. All right, we're going to move these out of the way for the moment. So we're going to put a white one here, a white one here. Get the extra threads on those. Okay. Then we're going to put that there, 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 and there. All right, Ursula, you haven't made an appearance, so let's avoid it. So let's go this one to this one. All right, we're sewing down that line. This one to this one. We're sewing down that one. This one to this one. And we're sewing down that one. Okay. Now I position them on my sewing machine the way we want to sew them. I will be back. Remember, make sure you're on a scant seam. All right, let's see. We're gonna need those, but they're kind of in the way. Did I get that? Yeah, all right. Okay, so now we're gonna sew this one to this one. That way. This one to this one this way. This one to this one this way. All right, let's come back. Okay. So that's one. Yeah, that's two, that's correct. And that's three, that's correct. Look at this. Ursula may not get a look in today. Yep. Okay. I do wish we had the fabric that was in the book because it is quite pretty. But this is still coming out all right. All right. Obviously, the seams matter. So let's try and get them as nice as possible. I'm only going to do them one at a time. So I'll do the top first and then I'll iron it out and then I'll do the bottom to make sure Ursula doesn't get a look in today. Okay. I might just pin that middle bit so that the seam stays down. Okay, we'll be back. Ursula's making a comeback. I can't even explain to you how that happened. That is my beginning seam. So it must have just been hooked under when I sewed it. I can't get around it. I have to just fix that top bit. So I will do the bottom bit first though, because we're on a roll, and then I'll fix that at the sewing machine while I'm there. So this is going to come over here, and we're going to line up and we're going to line up. I probably pinned it crooked. Gonna line up. Oh no, that seam in the middle is fine. It's going in the right direction. Put you here. Fix you up here. Get rid of you. All right, I'll be back and I will fix up that while I'm at the sewing machine. Okay. All done. Block 8, corner tails, all done. Only a brief appearance from Ursula. We've learnt about scant seams, which are these guys. We've learnt about a new ruler, this guy. And I think we have a spare bit of fabric that I'll just put back in the little bag. And then, yeah, all right. We've also learned that the original Edam was first created for Liberty Fabrics in 1994, which is a print that we're not using, so is irrelevant. All right, we don't learn anything else. All right, well done. Block 8 done. We need to skip block 9 because block 9 is an August tile, but it uses fabrics that we will not get for 2 more months. So our next block... Good news is that, don't worry, we'll do block 11, is a checkerboard variation. So we're going to do more strip piecing and then more standard piecing, sorry, and then strip piecing. So that'll be fun. We're going to have to learn to get our cuts nice and good, and this seam is at a normal seam. So that's a little bit easier. One less thing to worry about. All right, well, I'll see you for block 10, Mum.